Hello adventurers, it is I, Solus Venture, and welcome to my YouTube channel. And for today's video, it is World Building Wednesday. And so on Wednesdays, I share updates on any games and projects of mine, and we are going to be covering a topic in the realm of solo tabletop RPGs. So for updates, I honestly don't really have many updates. I'm actually kind of taking a break from creating games and like systems and just kind of enjoying my tabletop RPG sessions. So that's my update. And for today's topic, we are going to be covering mental barriers. And I'm going to answer the question, why solo tabletop RPGs aren't clicking for you, perhaps. So today we have our emotional support orc over here, and he's telling you to snap out of it. You might be telling yourself, oh, this sucks. No one cares. I'm not creative. I can't draw. What do I do next? Etc. And so these types of negative thinking when we play, especially when you're starting out, it's so important to remove that from your mindset. We are going to be covering a couple of things that I feel like are pretty common in solo tabletop RPGs, and we are going to talk about different ways to combat these types of sayings or quotes that you might be telling yourself. The first one, let's say you are creating a world, a campaign, you have everything mapped out, and just as you're about to play, you realize this isn't good enough. Okay, so I have definitely dealt with that type of negative statement, and here are a few things that I think are really important for you to remember if you are dealing with this type of negative thought pattern. Number one, you are not publishing a story. And so I think it's really important to remind yourself that you are simply playing a game, playing an adventure. You're not publishing anything. And the second thing would be to give yourself the freedom to be messy. So messy could be interpreted in so many different ways. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. So you see, for my very first solo journaling game, all my notes are really messy. You can just see it's just in so many different parts of the page. But I also have instances where my notes might be a little more organized. Like here, I'm organizing it by different boxes that I'm exploring when I play Alone Against Fear. It could be written like a dialogue. So these are my notes here, and they're very messy, but I think for the most part I'm able to kind of tell like what the scene was about. Or organized like this. This was another solo journaling game where you own a cafe shop, and each box represents a day and kind of the different customers that you come across that day. So I think it's really important to give yourself the freedom to be messy and just let your creativity flow. Another point I'd like to mention is you don't need to come up with quote-unquote new ideas. I feel like a lot of the campaigns that I've seen, these are all worlds and stories created from other stories. Like you just take inspiration from so many different sources and mediums, and so nothing's really new, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. A lot of inspiration can be taken from books. Like for example, The Hobbit. It's a really good one. I'm reading this trilogy of The Legend of Drizzt. Here's another one that I'm reading. I'm really enjoying this one. Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive. Yeah, I think it's important that as you are enjoying all these types of adventures that you are watching, that you are reading, or even listening to, maybe even board games, you can use those campaigns and those ideas and put it into your own worlds. I think it's also a good idea too, is if you have created past like campaigns, and let's say you just put it off to the side and you never really expand on that more, you can use those past ideas to try to come up with more stuff. Like for example, for me, I drew this kind of mountain, and there's like a sunset that's kind of hitting these mountains in a very mysterious way. And I got this idea as I was kind of just searching on YouTube for different coloring techniques with like markers and such. And obviously it's not super good, but I am learning how to just blend different colors here. But I took this image and I was thinking, oh, I could probably make something out of this. And so I pulled out my Shadow Dark system and the core book, and then I came up with this campaign, which I don't know if I'll probably play it soon or not, but it's definitely just kept here in my adventure notebook just in case if I want to pull it out someday. Yeah, I have here a troll. His name is Skaldor, and he crunches on dwarf bones in his cave that's like somewhere in here in the mountains. And within these mountains is a mysterious monster with these long tentacles that kind of come out of these tunnels. So just different ideas, and I'm just putting this in my adventure book in case if it is something that I do want to expand on. And so that is the first type of negative thought that may pop up as you're playing. And honestly, it doesn't need to be good enough. You can even just play as you go, and slowly the world and campaign will start to unravel, and you never know, it could end up just being like a really cool story. And sometimes it's okay if the story that you're playing doesn't seem like cool or like good enough. It's a game. It's simply a game and a really fun creative outlet. Number 2, I know this is a very common kind of like thinking pattern, is when you don't know what to do next. When I started, I had a really hard time to understand how to put myself in my character's shoes and really tap into their mind, into the world. And honestly, whenever I get like stuck, I do 2 things. One, I either think about the most logical thing that should happen next, and then I just stick with that and see how the story progresses. So that's one way. And then 2, just random tables to set the next scene. And so I know I've pulled out Adventure Crafter a lot for my videos, and that's a really good tool if you want a little more guidance on how to set the scene for your character and your story. So I think along with that, it's really important to give yourself some sort of structure. For me, when it comes to structure, Adventure Crafter has a really good system for me to be able to go from scene to scene. Or I love making my own flowcharts of the play loop. So this was a rough draft of my Dungeoneer for Hire game, and I came up with this loop of how combat should work. And so it's the same kind of principles, having this type of visual for your gameplay. I wouldn't say that this is a flow chart, but it does give you steps for your character as you play Caernathalis. So for example, what happens when you enter a room, and when you're going into combat, or if you have certain conditions or effects that might be applied to your character as you play the game, etc. And so I think it's really important to write down a flow or some sort of just simple system for you to use as you play your game. Giving yourself structure, I think, is really, really important. Another thing is that if you are sharing your story campaign online, you can totally ask the community, what would my character do next, or what do you think would happen in the next scene? For a lot of us YouTube content creators, well known as Cave, they do like a community-based like RPG kind of session sometimes, and so he would set the scene and then he would ask the community, okay, this happened, what do you think would happen next? I know Coach Key, they would also do the same thing too, as they are doing YouTube lives. They love to ask the community, okay, here is the world. What type of NPC should we create? Do you think this NPC would starting this scene, or do you think he would come into the next, etc.? So I think it's really fun to collaborate also with the online community, what other solo tabletop RPG players come up with. That is a second type of example of a negative thought pattern. So the third point that I wanted to talk about is this type of negative thought pattern of I don't care about the story. And so I think it's really important that as you create a story, create a campaign, create a character, etc., it's really important for you to, in some way, be able to connect with that character, the world, for you to have fun. I think it's important for you to reflect on your own life and your own experiences, your own interests. You can totally tie that into your character, so then you're able to relate to your character more that way. I think another important factor for you to care about the story, your session, your play, is to personalize your session. So I know for me, I love drawing things and just doing a little bit of DIY to really connect with the campaign. I love trying to draw out the scene, the setting, the characters. That helps me connect with the story. And you can just make your session like special, like make a routine to set up your space to make it ready for your adventure. Connect with your session. I think that's really, really important. That is the third type of negative thought pattern. The fourth type I feel like is also kind of common is this. It's not the same as playing with a group. And you are completely right. It is not the same as playing with a group of your friends and there's a GM and the GM is leading the story. And I think it's really important to note that solo tabletop RPGs, you're not going to have that same type of experience. And it's meant to be different. It's not supposed to be the same as playing with a group. So if you are kind of missing that like social aspect, I think it's really fun to connect with other solo tabletop RPG players. And I feel like when you collaborate with people, your creativity will also like flow. I've connected with a lot of you folks on here, on other social media platforms, and there are just so many great resources and ideas out there that I love adding into my own adventures as well. I think recording yourself playing like an audio or a video and sharing your adventures with others, I feel like that's a really nice way to kind of have that like social aspect. And then another thing, when it comes to that social aspect, you can create dialogues between your PC and your NPCs within your session. I still kind of do that. I love creating a dialogue, and so I think it's really fun to kind of see how NPCs would react to different tones of the conversation. And so I think it's another great way to kind of fill that social, I guess, void if you're missing that. So that is the fourth type of negative thought pattern, that it's not the same as playing with a group, but it's not supposed to be the same. It's a personalized solo tabletop RPG experience that's just meant for you. The last one I want to talk about. I can start, but how do I finish? And so I think it's important to first kind of reflect on what you want to get out of your solo tabletop RPG session. Do you want sandboxy, open world, and you just want to go off and not really have like a set kind of campaign? Or do you want to give yourself like a timeline? Again, this kind of goes into giving yourself structure. So maybe after 10 sessions, that would count as 10 scenes, and that could complete part 1 of your adventure. And then once you're done with part 1, you can go into part 2, and then that would be another 10 sessions or 10 scenes, etc. So having maybe like a beginning, a middle, and an end. When you first kind of build out your campaign, build out your world, you can do it that way. Another way is to kind of have a progress tracker. An example of that would be leveling up your character. So maybe let's say you start out as a level 1 fighter, and then you want to say when he reaches up to level 5, that could be the end of the campaign. So that's like one way to kind of track your progress for your character. And then specifically for the story itself, like maybe you can track your story using a map, and then you can make notes around the different parts of the map to kind of figure out what is happening. And so with the story and campaign that you are creating, you're also trying to remind yourself that it is a living kind of world. So meaning whatever that your PC is doing, the antagonist, maybe the evil like boss lord or something, he is also at play doing things as well. So an example of that would be, let's say I'm entering into this dungeon, and let's say I'm in room 2 here. So I clear out room 2, I defeated all the encounters in there. You can also roll separately for the boss monster and kind of ask the fate chart, okay, where would the boss monster kind of be now at this point, or what would he be doing? Maybe the boss monster is moving his treasure around in the dungeon, or maybe his boss monster is trying to gather more recruits and wants to order his minions to go into certain rooms or something to try to find the PC. So that's another way that you can track separately what the PC is doing versus what the antagonist is doing. So I think it's really important for you to kind of reflect on how you want to finish the story, or do you want to leave it on like a cliffhanger and maybe continue the maybe there's a second campaign that can come out of the first one. So giving yourself a timeline, a structure, different ways for you to track how the story is progressing, I think is really important. You can even ask yourself if you are kind of just tired of where the story is going, and you can just end it that way too. I know there are a ton of different mental barriers out there for folks who are trying to get into solo tabletop RPGs, but things are just not clicking for them. And I will say that it takes time for things to click, for you to understand your flow of play. Try different things and give yourself structure in order to help yourself kind of visualize how you want to play. So I think that's really it for mental barriers, or for why it's not clicking, and maybe it's because you might be dealing with these negative thought patterns. I will make this point again: use inspiration from different types of adventures that you've read or that you've watched. Here's a art book that I really love, and there's just some like really cool art in here that's also very inspiring, and I can draw a lot of different things from here and add it to my own campaigns. Yeah, just be open-minded, because you are also learning a lot about yourself and how you play as a solo tabletop RPG player. I hope that this was helpful. This emotional support orc is trying to tell you to snap out of it, don't think too hard, and just enjoy the process and discovery of how you play. That is it for this video. Thank you so much, adventurers, for joining me. Let me know if you have tips, or if you want to share different barriers that are preventing you from enjoying your sessions. So yeah, thank you so much. Until next time.